Hey everybody, this is Derrick with the Conscious Resistance Network. So it's voting season again. Wait, no it's not. It's only 2015. The election is still 1 year away. Well, regardless, the candidates have announced themselves earlier and earlier each year, and I'm sure by now your Facebook feed, your social media accounts are overblown with Hillary endorsements, Ted Cruz endorsements, Rand Paul endorsements, or opposition from the other side. Now, if you followed my work for a couple of years, then you probably know I'm an advocate of non-voting. And every time there's an election season, I feel the need to remind individuals why I believe non-voting is important. And I always, without a doubt, get pushback from certain individuals who say I'm doing more harm than good because I'm just telling people to be lazy and to ignore politics because that'll fix it. But if you know anything about me and my strategy and what the Conscious Resistance Network is about, we promote the ideas of agorism and solutions and building counter institutions to the state. So I'd like to briefly go over some of the ideas why non-voting is actually a strategy and is not a case for apathy. First of all, I consider myself to be an anarchist, a voluntarist, somebody who believes in a voluntary society, and my means of doing that is through agorism by creating counter-institutions. But along with creating counter-institutions, it's also important for us to educate the masses who remain within the matrix and who remain stuck on this system as to the flaws of that system, so hopefully they will then remove themselves from it and then join the rest of us who are opting out to create a new society based on principles and morals and cooperation and voluntary ideas. So I'm going to take this definition here from voluntarist.com, and I'll be putting all these links of everything we're about to go through below the video. Voluntarists are advocates of non-political, non-violent strategies to achieve a free society. We reject electoral politics in theory and in practice as incompatible with libertarian principles. And I think that's important because I think anyone who considers himself to be a libertarian, of course, this word is getting used more and more by the mainstream media, and they're lumping it on people like Rand Paul and all kinds of people who really are not libertarian in any way. All that you have to do these days, it seems, is express some sort of anti-war sentiment, and the media will say, oh look, you're a libertarian. But being libertarian goes way beyond simply being anti-war. And I believe once you understand the ideas of non-aggression, self-ownership, and you follow these principles and these ideas to their logical conclusion, you will get to the ideas of anarchy and realize that government itself is immoral. And along with that, voting is immoral. So yeah, we reject electoral politics not only in theory, but actually in practice. Governments must cloak their actions in an aura of moral legitimacy in order to sustain their power, and political methods invariably strengthen that legitimacy. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to go over, is that you are actually buying into the system by choosing to vote, whether it's for Gary Johnson and the Libertarian Party, or Rand Paul and the Republican Party, or any of these other people. Voluntarists seek instead, here's our strategy, to delegitimize the state through education, which is why I write articles, which is why I do vlogs and spread awareness this way. And we advocate withdrawal of the cooperation and tacit consent on which state power ultimately depends. And that last part is extremely important. We advocate withdrawal of our cooperation and tacit consent on which state power is ultimately dependent upon. So again, if it's this idea that if, 1,000 people were to stop paying their taxes, or if 1,000 people were to, well, that was back in the time when Henry David Thoreau first said that, but if we had 10,000 or 100,000 people stop paying taxes or stop supporting these systems, they would collapse underneath their own weight because they're unsustainable, and they only continue to thrive and survive because people believe there is no other way. So let's get into these ideas briefly. Also, there's a bunch of essays, really powerful essays at voluntarist.com. I'm going to include those as well. We're going to go over a couple of them, but I'll just throw you some of the titles. Cultivate Your Own Garden, Why I Would Not Vote Against Hitler, Why I Refuse to Register, and the first one we're going to look at is called Is Voting an Act of Violence? And this is written by Carl Watner in April 2000, and I want you to read this on your own, but basically the title says it all. It's asking the question, is voting an act of violence? And I would argue that yes, voting is an act of violence. At the least, it's an act of violence on the presidential level. I would also say that voting is always immoral in the sense that you choosing what to do for the masses of people is immoral. So what I mean by that is, if you decide you want to go vote for a president, but I decide I don't want to live under this rule, I never signed this social contract, you are then basically saying you speak for me and you're going to place a vote and I have to abide by those rules. And if I don't, then, you know, I'm forced out of the country, or men with guns will come and take me and put me in a cage. Now, there's this old adage that, well, if you don't vote, then you have no reason to speak, right? You have no reason to talk because it's your fault, right? Well, in fact, it's the other way around. You voted for these people. You got exactly what you asked for. You wanted hope and change, and you fell for that. Well, I'm sorry, brothers and sisters. I hope that you have woken up since Obama's been in office and are not going to fall for the same shit for Hillary, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, or any of these other people that are coming in, because they're only going to promise you things that they can't deliver. That is the whole nature of politics, is they get up there and they lie and they say things in order to get you enticed and interested. But meanwhile, most people that I've discussed this with seem to perfectly accept the idea that politicians are going to lie. They're going to say whatever they have to get elected, and later they will lie or, you know, not follow through on their promises. And then very good, principled people, at least people I thought were principled, make excuses for these politicians. It's really insane to watch this happen. So I believe by you choosing to vote, and I will say this, I don't vote. I don't vote federally, state-wise, anything like that. There are some local measures in the city of Houston that I have helped push for. I've never voted on anything there, but if there was something that I knew with my, you know, help of the city, I could push it through, would I do it? If it meant repealing a law, those are the only type of things that I tend to lean towards personally. Now, if it meant that by supporting a new measure locally in Houston, it would, you know, end surveillance by the Houston Police Department and repeal back these unconstitutional, immoral, illegal things, I could support that. I would not vote for something that decided on what to do with the city of 4.5 million people's money and think that I was just and moral in that. You know, that's one of the things I've learned by going downtown to city council, is there's this room of 12 people who are deciding what to do with the money and the funds of 4.5 million people, and none of the people have any idea what's going on there. They don't see these lists of contracts and see what corporations and what businesses are taking their money, and it's really a disturbing thing. So I think that alone is why ideas like democracy and those type of ideas are wrong, because the individual is the strongest minority. We can't ignore the individual. And if any individual decides they don't want their money taken and used in a certain way, then I believe they have that right, and they should have the right to pull their money out and to opt out. You shouldn't be subject to the whims of the tyranny of the majority, which is essentially what democracy is. So yes, I would say voting is an act of violence. Voting is an act of violence because you are legitimizing this system. You are saying that, hey, I believe enough in this system to put my vote, to spend my time, my gas, my energy to go to the polling station, and hopefully you do at least a minimum of research on who these people are at least, and to go place your vote. And at the same time, again, back to Thoreau. Thoreau said, cast your whole vote, not merely a strip of paper. And, you know, you don't want to just write somebody's name down or type it in a computer and assume that these things are going to lead to what you really want in your life. You have to claim your own life. You have to claim ownership over yourself and who you are as a person, as an empowered, beautifully free, independent human being, and create those solutions. We're going to get to those solutions in just a moment. Another essay that they have featured here is actually from Lysander Spooner, who you guys should know about, and if you don't, please go do some research on him. He wrote this in 1877, and it's titled Against Women's Suffrage. Now, women's suffrage was actually the movement where women were fighting for the right to vote and to not be treated like property and to own property and to make their own decisions and to be free people like they should, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But Lysander Spooner and even Emma Goldman and Vautrin de Cleyre, some of the anarcho-feminists, argued against voting, saying that the idea that the state sells is that, oh, a woman's somehow going to come along and use her supernatural powers to change the state through a vote. And it's just selling this idea that if we bring women into the voting block, then somehow things will change. And this is a great essay. I'm gonna read just a paragraph of it right here, if you don't mind. And again, I want you guys to read all of this because it'll educate you greatly. Women are human beings and consequently have all the natural rights that any human beings can have. They have just as good a right to make laws as men have, and no better, and that is just no right at all. No human being, nor any number of human beings, have any right to make laws or compel other human beings to obey them. To say that they have is to say that they are the masters and owners of those whom they require such obedience. The only law that any human being can rightfully be compelled to obey is simply the law of justice. And justice is not a thing that is made or that can be unmade or altered by any human authority. It is a natural principle inherent in the very nature of man and things. It is that natural principle which determines what is mine and what is thine, what is one man's right or property and what is another man's right or property. It is, so to speak, the line that nature has drawn between one man's rights of person and property and another man's rights of person and property. So he goes on to argue that this is just a bullshit idea being sold. Let's get women into the voting block. Let's get gay rights and gay voting rights and all these ideas. And again, I'm not bashing women fighting for their rights at all. No, I think women deserve to be respected just like any other group of human beings in the world. That should be a no-brainer. They all deserve respect and the same opportunity to express themselves and to be free in that manner. But let's not fool ourselves and act as if women coming into the voting block or gays or lesbians or transgender or any other group of people that are fighting for their particular right to marry or right to vote or anything like that, as if that's going to change the institution. It won't. It's only something that's being sold to us so that we have one other thing to fight after and to go after and to believe that, oh, once the women have the right to vote or once the gays have the right to vote or to marriage, that somehow these institutions are going to change. But they won't change, and they're not going to change. Now, before we get to the solutions, I'll tell you one of the responses I've got from some people about this. The idea that, well, it only takes me a certain amount of time to vote, Derrick. Why can't I do both? You're selling a false dichotomy and saying that either no voting or you vote and you're a part of the system. And that's essentially what I am saying. Because what I'm saying is either you go and you place your vote and it takes very little time at all, like excluding how long it takes you to drive there and wait in line, etc. But it really, like you said, you're sitting there, you're surfing Facebook while you wait to go vote for president. You go in there, you cast your vote, and you leave with this nice, good feeling. You get to post on Facebook and tell your friends, I voted for the president. Yay, maybe the world's going to change, things like that. And you get a sense of feeling good. So if that's what you're after, then good for you. But don't lie to yourself and believe that that's actually going to change. I mean, I won't even go into how easily hackable these machines are, these dieballed voting machines, and how easily changed these votes can be. That's a whole other issue that delegitimizes this system. But even just on the philosophical and the moral end of these things, you can use your time better. So either you're going to vote and you're not even researching anybody, and in that case, I think that's probably worse to have uneducated voters. That's probably the bigger problem. I don't think that us who are non-voting are the problem. If you look at statistics, more and more people are not voting. And I would say a portion of that is from apathy, and I would say another portion of that is because people are just sick and tired of the system and they don't believe that it can change from within. And they're right. So to those who say, well, I can still vote and do all these other things, you're saying, yes, you're right. You could probably research candidates and go vote and still support agorist ventures and get involved in your community and community gardens and things like that. And you will have done both strategies. But you know what that reminds me of? I know some people who say that they're only Christians because they're worried about what will happen if they don't pledge their life to Christ or to God. They're worried about going to hell. But what kind of fear-based logic is that? They're not even really sure if they believe the things that they're saying they believe, but they say they believe them so that in case there is a God, in case anybody's listening, they might make it to heaven. They're afraid to go to hell, so this is what they're thinking. And I see the same thing with this. Well, I don't really believe in the system of voting, but if I don't vote, then somebody evil is going to get in there, so I'll vote for the person that's a little less evil. But guess what? You're still voting for evil, and there's no way around that, okay? So even if you think you can do both tactics, you can still vote within the system and support that, and you can, be outside the matrix. Because I definitely support a 1 foot in, 1 foot out method and strategy. But you're still voting for evil, and at the end of the day, that's what matters. If you care about being a moral, principled person, then get off it. They're all, evil, however you want to use that term. They're all corrupt. They're all bought off and paid for. And none of them are going to bring you happiness, because ultimately only you can provide that happiness. And that's where we get to solutions. The most important part of this video. Thank you guys for hanging on. Solutions. Support agorism. If you don't know what agorism is, look at my other video right there, and find out all about that strategy. But specifically, educate those around you. Show them the faults in the system. But don't only come to them with fear and with negativity. Show them that there are other options. And those other options include getting involved in community gardens. Those other options include investing in and supporting cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and other currencies that allow you to get off the Federal Reserve System. Investing in silver, gold, creating barter exchange networks, community exchange networks, supporting free schooling, unschooling, supporting independent media ventures. All of these ideas, while they may not sound on the whole as powerful as picking the new king, they are infinitely more powerful because they affect your local community. They affect the people that you see on an everyday basis. You have to start getting involved in your surroundings. You have to get off the couch. You have to stop working your bullshit job and believing that that's going to create change. I know that's not always a feasible option for many of us, but think about if you decided today, once a week, you were going to commit at least 1 hour to investing 1 hour into your community, whether that meant going and meeting your neighbors, going and getting involved in a local community garden, or whatever it may be. Find something that's going on in your community and find a way to connect to those people, and then start finding ways to educate those people. If they're not already creating systems that are outside of the mainstream, you can help educate them and show them, look, I'm into these ideas. I know you guys care about the community, but let's look past voting. Let's look at other options that we might have. Because there are lots of good people out there who still believe that voting is the most effective way for them to change the world. And again, voting for a president is a waste of your time. It's largely bought off and paid for. It makes very little difference what we think these days. They're already picking whoever they want to be in that role. So let go of it. We have to let go of our mommy and daddy authority complexes that tell us that we need somebody above us telling us what's right and what's wrong. We know what's best for us. So all I'm asking is look into the ideas of non-voting. Learn that it's not just about apathy. It's about being strategic. This is a part of our method. Educate, build, and remove your consent. Educate people about the problems of this system. Educate people about the solutions. Build those solutions. Support others who are building those solutions. And remove yourself from their system at every step of the way. We have to begin to examine the ways that we are consenting and supporting our own enslavement through these institutions. If you don't like the mainstream media, stop watching their TVs. Support independent media. If you don't like the farming industrial food complexes, stop buying their food. Stop eating at their restaurants. Stop supporting those industries. And if you don't like the government, stop using their systems. Stop voting for them. Because if you vote for them, you're going to get what you asked for. And that's going to be more of that boot stomping on your face forever. More police state, more Big Brother, more surveillance, more lies, more hypocrisy, more immorality. And we're better than that. Thank you guys for listening. As always, if you can hear this, you are the resistance. Peace.